How you going, guys? So in this episode we're going to go through some tips and four-wheel drive musts for when touring Australia. So this up here, as you can see, we've got a sealed road. And pretty quickly that'll turn into dirt, so I'm taking the opportunity now to stop and let my tyres down. So inside this protective case, we've got a tyre deflator. So flip around. So it's pressure gauge and tyre deflator in one. So it's as easy as this. Just remove the valve cap. And then on this end, this little valve piece, put over the top. Right. Then inside this little plunger part, there's actually a valve core remover. So you push that in, that'll actually undo the valve to make it easier to undo the pressure out of the tyre. So it's as simple as remove the valve core. See there, it's 36 pound in there at the moment. So pull this out and it'll release the tyre pressure. And just push it back in to stop. And here, you get your reading of what your tyre pressures are. And then you push that in, turn it to the right, reinstall that valve core. Just because you never know what could happen, I release this just to be safe, to make sure that the pressures actually stop coming out. Then you twist that back. Tiny little bit of saliva on your finger, check the valve core, make sure it's not leaking. Put the valve core back on, and that's one tyre done. And then you do the same process for the other three tyres. So the road that I'm on today is Merivale Road, which leads you down to Fink. So as you can see by the road, it's pretty rough and chewed up. This is pretty good for what it usually is. So recently I've had a grader come through doing roadworks just up there a little bit. What it usually looks like, it's really soft, sort of powder. Right, it's like a talcum powder. As you can see, this is a little turnaround. You can see how that sort of softness is affecting the road. This is one of the reasons why I drop my tyre pressures down so much. I don't know how good the camera picks this up. Along these roads, you'll find corrugations. So little bumps in the road. Now, the idea of dropping your tyre pressures just softens and cushions the vehicle a little bit. And the upgraded suspension does help, but I mean, the worst thing that I've found on roads like this is people slowing right down, going way too slow. Now instead of gliding over the top, as you're going faster, you're basically going on the very edge of the corrugations. You're going over the top. The slower you go, you actually end up coming into the corrugation. You bounce a lot more, which gives you that rougher ride. Doesn't matter where you go in Australia, the number one thing that I think every four-wheel drive should have is a tyre gauge, or even a combination tyre gauge deflator. Just simple thing it'll help you with deflating your tyres when you go on four-wheel drive tracks, but also help you keep an eye on the tyre pressures as well. Now on the other end of that, number two would be air compressor. So I mean, look, yes, you're going to deflate your tyres, but you got to have a way of putting your tyre pressures back up. It's a tough one. So a lot of people will say that you can't take highway terrain tyres on dirt tracks. Now, that's tyre technology nowadays has gone, simple, basic, slick tyres that basically just use on-road. And a lot of these tyres nowadays have, it's basically a water dispersion technology, but it does help with gravel roads and dirt roads and stuff like that. Like, obviously, if you're going to be spending a lot of time on dirt tracks and going off-road and that, you want to get an all-terrain tyre. But with us, we've gone for an all-terrain tyre that's not really aggressive. It does the job. I mean, if you're going to be doing a lot of off-roading, then yeah, all-terrain would be the way to go. But it shouldn't be something that you have to go out and get just to be able to go out on dirt tracks and go places. I mean, mud tyres have their place, and I think for sandy beaches and even doing a Simpson Desert crossing, mud tyres aren't going to really help you out when you're trying to get traction in soft sand. They're great for wet and muddy conditions, but that's about it. I mean, yes, mud tyres have a stronger sidewall, so it helps with punches, but you're going to be going out and spending all this extra money on mud tyres for something that you're not really going to be using it for on every day. So it's one of those things, I suppose. But the other thing with mud tyres, that if you reduce the tyre pressure with an all-terrain, you get it doesn't have such a stiff sidewall, so you can reduce the tyre pressures and have a bigger footprint connecting to the road. Whereas with the mud tyres, you have to let a lot more air out, which you run the risk of popping a bead off the rim just to be able to get the same amount of footprint. Towing, so air pressures and towing, there's a lot of misconception that you don't have to let your tyre pressures down. I think that's it's not ignorant, it's something that needs to be taught. People need to learn more about this sort of stuff. So if you're, like I said about the corrugations, if you're driving down a dirt road and you haven't let your tyre pressure down in your car, you will be feeling it a lot more, and you will be feeling a lot more in your caravan if you don't let your tyre pressure down. It does cushion the roughness of the road a lot. I mean, so will upgraded suspension, but we'll get into that in a minute. I mean, it also helps reduce wear and tear on your vehicle suspension, whether it be your car, your four-wheel drive, or your caravan. So it brings us into suspension upgrades. Now, look, nowadays everything's kind of going, especially in a dual cab, you're going leaf in the rear and coil in the front, and then you go to wagons that have coil front and rear. And then you got the old torsion bar technology in the front with coils in the rear, like the Hyundai does. Like, we've got a torsion bar front and a coil rear. So I think that the first thing to upgrade before you do a lift kit, before you do anything, you might not even need a lift kit. So first thing would be just upgrade your shocks. If you're going to be spending days driving down corrugated roads and rough roads with washouts and creek crossings and all that sort of stuff, brake fade is a thing. And with standard shocks, you're going to wear them out really quick. So upgrade your shocks. If that's budget end of upgrading your suspension. Next step would be a spring upgrade. Like, yes, you can do both at once, but if you spend most of your days driving on a main road, on a highway, or even around town, upgrading your springs to a heavy duty spring isn't going to change anything for your day-to-day driving. Rear spring upgrades, so higher rated springs. Like, we haven't gone a high rated spring in the rear of ours. It's got upgraded springs, and we're going to be going and getting a full, complete upgrade spring, shock, and torsion bar package. But obviously with dual cabs, and if you're going to be carrying a load all the time, you want a high rated spring to carry that extra weight. I mean, we've gone the other way, and that's airbag helpers. So we've got coil inserts in our rear springs. So when we are carrying weight in the back or we are towing, we just pump a bit of pressure into the sleeves. With the airbag helpers or coil inserts or whatever you want to, depending on the application, they will help with towing. Now, most of you would have seen how vehicles are. If you don't upgrade the suspension, the vehicle sits, it basically squats in the rear end. So the airbag helpers will help bring that back up, just to help increase the performance of the vehicle. So if you're going down dirt corrugated roads and through sand and stuff like that, and you've got a lower departure angle on your vehicle, and you could end up dragging your vehicle. You could damage something by having the vehicle on such an angle in such a way that it twists and just distorts the vehicle. Regular maintenance, this isn't something that everyone's going to be able to do themselves, and I know a lot of people that do take their vehicles to a mechanic just for servicing, make sure everything's going all right. One thing I would suggest, if you're going to be going down dirt roads or long trips or stuff like that, you will be stopping for rests and checking your fluids and checking your oil, and every now and then just have even a visual inspection of places on your vehicle that you can see nuts and bolts. Now, over the last few months, I've had a lot of people come into my work and they're replacing shock bolts and control arm bolts and everything like that. And corrugations can loosen bolts, nuts, brake line fittings where they connect to the chassis, or so it does happen. And if you're remote and you have a suspension bolt let go, if you can't recover yourself, chances are you're going to have to get towed out, and that can get pretty expensive. Like going across the Simpson, we'll just use as an example, that you can get recovered. Mount Dare and Birdsville, both ends of the Simpson Desert Crossing, do offer recoveries. They're not cheap. Like, they're thousands of dollars depending on where you are, and most insurance companies won't cover you for that. So just for that peace of mind, make sure you do check. It's not hard. It's peace of mind to know that you're going to make it to the end safe and secure. Check your oils, check your coolants. I'm not saying you do it every couple of hours or something like that. If you go for a long drive during the day, leave your car settle overnight, check the fluids before you go for a drive in the morning. If you're going to be traveling long distances, you want to be checking your fluids on a regular basis. Basic communication. So, you don't need the fancy mobile signal boosters. If you're not going to be going in a phone range all the time, it's a waste of money. A lot of times now, if you can't get phone signal when you're driving along even along the highway, everywhere, every roadhouse pretty much around Australia will have either a payphone, Wi-Fi hotspot. Most of them, even going across the Nullarbor, they'll have 3G phone service anywhere you go. Obviously, the more remote you go, you're going to need something. If you're going to go really remote, you're going to want some sort of satellite communication. So UHF radios. So I mean, at the moment we're only running a handheld UHF radio, and that's what we're going to be running until we put our electrical system in. We're not going to be going, stupidly ridiculous overkill. And for what we're doing at the moment, the handhelds, they do the job. If you're not going out all the time, if you're not using them on a daily basis, then a handheld unit will do. It's not going to give you the best range, but in an emergency, if you need to contact someone and there is someone in that area, you can contact them on a handheld. Fixed and hardwired options. So you've got multiple fixed hardwired options that you can go for. Now, you know, we've run hideaway units in the past, so GME have a great product, and we've used them in the past. It's XRS head unit and removable microphone. You can put that into your dash somewhere. It can be hidden away somewhere, running your cord into your dashboard, and you can put your microphone connection in and remove it when you're not using it. Chuck it in the glove box. Yeah, that's the basics of what I feel that you should have. Basics, you know. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars upgrading your vehicle just to be able to get out there. Like, we have a very basic 12 volt setup at the moment, and that's probably how we're going to keep it for a while. Very basic communication, very basic four-wheel drive setup, but it does the job for the places that we go. We're not going, you know, cross country, you know, really hard four-wheel drive tracks. That's not what we use our vehicle for, and not everyone does that. A lot of people think that they have to go out and spend thousands of dollars on lift kits and mud terrain tyres and big alloy wheels, and, you know, engineering the vehicle for 37s. It's crazy how people get out there and do that sort of stuff when they don't need to. If you just want to get out there and enjoy what we have around Australia, you can go in any state. You'll find areas that you can go to. You can go camp. Like, at the moment, I'm down along the Merivale Road, so, you know, Alice Springs to Fink, following the old Garn Railway. Yeah, the road's a little bit crap, and it usually is after Fink. Like, we probably won't see a full grading of the road until just before Fink next year. But you still can access this road every day. It's, you know, during summer, the road's a lot softer, so you kind of have to drive to the conditions, but you can get out there and do anything, even on a budget. Anyway, thanks guys. Please remember, like, subscribe. Leave a comment below what you think would be your addition to a basic four-wheel drive setup.